Get ready. You're about to experience the life science effect. The most influential players in biotech, pharma, and medical device, bringing you their insights and inspirational stories. Are you ready to boost your career? Ready to set your medical innovation in motion? You have arrived at the right place. Every week, another industry leader, more insights, more inspiration, and tips you can implement right away to make your mark on the world. We're here today with Rainer Fischer, PhD. He's the Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Scientific and Innovation Officer at the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. Thanks for being with us today, Rainer. That was a really brief introduction. Could you just take a few minutes, tell us more about yourself, more about the IBRI, maybe even a little about your personal life, if you'd like?
Yeah, happy to do so. Welcome. So my name is Rainer Fischer. As you mentioned, I'm the current CEO and CSIO of IBRI, the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. I'm a born native German, and I moved to Indiana exactly a year and 2 days ago to take on this challenge and these two jobs. I'm a molecular immunologist, a geneticist by training. Got my degree at the Tübingen University. And after my PhD in molecular immunology, I moved to the Beckman Research Institute of the City of Hope in Southern California. I worked on the early stages of chimeric antibodies for tumor-related diseases. I also co-developed the first assay for PSA, prostate-specific antigen, with molecular diagnostics through PCR. Then I joined Baxter Healthcare in the early 90s. I worked there for 2 years in immunotherapy, the early stages of today's CAR T-cell technology. Back then we called them T-bodies, antibody T-cell receptor chimeras. But I decided in 1994 to go back to academia, and I got an offer from the RWTH Aachen, that's a technical university in Germany, the most prominent engineering school, together with ETH in Zurich in Europe. And I became full professor 6 years later at the Aachen University in molecular biotechnology. And I have taught until mid-2017 several courses there, and also graduated 127 PhD students since then. And I don't even count the number of bachelor and master students anymore. In parallel to my academic career, and I ended it with a distinguished professorship at Aachen University, and I still hold this title, I then moved on in parallel in 2000 to guide one of the 67 Fraunhofer institutes. And Fraunhofer is the most prominent and the largest applied research organization today, with 67 institutes and over 24,000 employees. And I took on a challenging institute in ecological sciences and converted that into an institute for molecular biology and applied ecology, and grew it from 42 to 680 people over the 18 years. And with the team, we raised over €1 billion in funding in multiple sites, setting up 6 operations in Germany, plus a site in Delaware on particular emergency vaccines, and also a site in Chile. To also address global challenges, both in health, but also nutrition. And ultimately, we also did a lot of work in industrial biotechnology, coming from different angles to basically tailor microbes to take up pollutants like syngas and convert that into chemical building blocks. I think I've achieved a lot of things in my life in terms of creating jobs, creating revenue, and making an institute very successful in the applied research space. Hope also in academia, and the thing that I'm the most proud of is that all my PhD students have a job. And I think this is a very important contribution. And now with a new challenge here, I hope I can build with the team, and it is a team effort, it's not only about me, something similar over the next 10 years with IBRI and the local stakeholders. As our mission at IBRI will be to be the connector, the facilitator between academia and industry. So similar what I did before, but we will not copy, but we will learn from the previous model and try to adopt that to the local intrinsic situation. But also we want really to contribute both in health as well as in nutrition, particularly targeting diabetes, cardiometabolic diseases, valuable diagnostic tools, but also therapeutic interventions, schedules and schemes to these spaces to provide solutions to our stakeholders. That can be industry players, these can be spin-outs, but also our academic partners in the future. And these are in particular Purdue University, IU, as well as Notre Dame. But we are totally open to expand that both on the academic side as well as on the industrial side.
Wow. And you have a family as well, don't you?
Well, I'm living separated. I have a son, a 13-year-old son that lives in California, and it was one of my personal reasons to come to the U.S. to be closer to him. But other than that, I'm living here with my partner, and I'm feeling very happy being in Indianapolis. Found a nice place to live, and I feel very comfortable here.
So you've accomplished so much, and you continue to do. You're continuing to do so much. And how do you? Somebody like me immediately goes, "How do you find the time?" Right? But you must be very efficient.
Well, some people would say I'm German.
Well, I guess that's true. I didn't think of that right away. Yeah,
and I am, at least to a certain degree. No, but I think it's a lot about, in particular, planning and managing your day, but also finding the right people, the right team where you can delegate. So, like this big operation I had before. And I didn't mention, ultimately, I even became the spokesman of the Life Science Alliance. I was in charge of 6 institutes and over 2,000 people, ultimately. It is a change now of pace, but on the other hand, we have to also compensate a bit, bring innovative ideas to reality. And you can only do this with the right team. So there were already some people here. We have now added another really senior person to the team coming from Delaware. And with these people, plus also the support staff like Mike Kraft here, for example, Mark Kraft here in the public relations position, but also other people that we recently hired, I think we will be able to do so.
So team is very important to you. What are the characteristics you're looking for from a team member, particularly somebody in a leadership position?
I'm primarily interested in people that can think outside the box, that don't think in silos, that are really willing to tackle big problems, challenges, whether they are now in health, in nutrition, industrial biotech, medtech. We are totally open about that, but really coming together and consolidating know-how, resources, infrastructure, and jointly tackling a big challenge and contributing to the solution. I think we cannot expect in the next 10 years that IBRI will solve certain problems, let's say, for example, curing diabetes. But I hope that both in the nutrition, or even in 3 areas in nutrition, diagnosis and therapeutic intervention, that we can make significant contributions. And you can only do this if you work across the board with different people, leaders in the institute, but also with your external network in academia as well as in industry, or ultimately even regulatory agencies to bring things to the market.
Do you find it easy if you're talking to a leader to maybe join your team or to join the life sciences community to motivate them? And what do you think motivates them to be a life science leader?
Well, it depends on where you do that. In my past position, it was extremely easy because I had a very good reputation, and that automatically attracted people because people want to go with people that have a good track record, a good reputation, or can help them to develop a career or ultimately get a very good and a sustainable employment. Here, we're starting almost from zero. So when I came here, we were 16 people. Now we are close to 30 people. And so in the beginning, I had to convince the existing team to continue and to build on what they have, but also to consolidate. And now with the new people, you need to integrate them and also bringing new additional technologies, we call them core competencies, to the table. And you can only do this with the right people. Now I succeeded in the first person that we attracted as a senior person guiding some of the new research. And I think he's doing a good job integrating here with the existing team. And we're also now filling the middle area, basically with postdocs, junior researchers. And I hope that we will also be successful there. I think we will have some challenges regarding the location. On the other hand, there's big opportunities here. What many people don't know, Indiana is the top number 2 state in the nation in terms of exports in the life science industry. And I think if we play this card, plus we can also provide a good and stimulating working environment, both from the infrastructure, but in particular from the people and the projects we're working on. And I think you can almost have nothing more rewarding than working in life sciences if you can make a contribution to a new diagnostic, to a new therapeutic means or feature, then I think you're going to be very successful. And I hope we're going to succeed in recruiting these young, talented scientists. But I'm also open to attract people that are senior or that undergo a change based on reorganizations like here most recently happening in Indianapolis with one of the key players or multiple of the key players. If you also take the merger and acquisition between Dow AgroSciences and DuPont, for example. And we are open to any of these people and anybody who is interested to help and to contribute to these big challenges are more than welcome to join IBRI or as an affiliate or as a partner through the strategic network.
Fantastic. You are very rightly proud of your accomplishments at Fraunhofer and elsewhere. And I know a lot of people in Indiana are excited to have you here and looking forward to your accomplishments here. What do you think the keys from your past success have been that you'll be applying going forward to make sure that you're successful here as well?
Well, I think the key to the success is definitely the people. The people that I got to know, I was lucky and fortunate enough to get to know over the last 2 decades, to join both the University of Aachen, also other German universities, and in particular Fraunhofer, very often in a dual appointment, being very open-minded and being in particular open-minded to new innovative approaches. And interesting enough, our biggest successes ultimately came out of rejections in the standard grant submission process to get public funding. Mm-hmm. So literally all our big stories were rejected once, twice, sometimes 3 times. And I was always very vivid about that, to stay on track and say we're going to make that happen. And I was capable of raising the initial funds to support these people with the initial ideas, to bring them to a certain maturity level that ultimately either industry bought in or that we could use them for spin-outs or even for licensing out in certain areas. And I hope I can do something similar here in the future with the existing and the future team, but also with the existing and future partners.
It's almost a message for young entrepreneurs and startups and everything. Is sometimes the biggest success comes out of failure, or what we might think of as failure, but really it's just an obstacle in the road, and you pivot and move on to the next one. Do you have any stories that maybe would apply in that case, where someone externally maybe would see it as a failure, but you took it and learned something from it moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I have multiple, but maybe I can tell you one that
Sure.
was the story about the Russian dandelion, where we had around 15, 16 years ago the idea first to produce biopharmaceuticals like vaccines in dandelion plants. These are the yellow plants that become a nuisance, in particular to a natural homeowner. And anyway, so we had the idea to basically produce valuable compounds in that. And by accident, we stumbled over a genetic regulator driven by a gene that is a peroxidase and basically oxidizes the product. And when we removed that, basically inactivated that gene, we found out that these plants started bleeding, like the Brazilian rubber tree. And that means that you can continuously milk them and get the rubber. But then the problem was that we realized that the biomass was so small, you could barely detect the root system. And it took us almost 15 years to develop a decent breeding program to have roots that are now almost as big as a sugar beet. And with this, you get a decent yield per acre, you would say here, and also in terms of the yield per plant. And we were fortunate enough, and that was maybe my forte, that I bumped on a business trip into one of the key people from the Continental Tire Company. He invited me after that meeting at a business lounge, actually at an airport. Within 3 weeks, we had a meeting. 3 months later, we literally had the agreement in place. And this has now turned into almost a 10-year joint collaboration. And the product, most likely as a green tire, grown locally in Germany, will come to the market, hopefully in the next 2 years. And if you see the impact ultimately also in terms of carbon imprint, reducing instead of producing manufacturing in Malaysia, Indonesia, and bringing it to Europe or to the US, we can do this in the future, hopefully locally. And again, initially, when we tried to get support from the German German government or the European Union with different funding programs, we were rejected. So we were fortunate enough through Fraunhofer to get some kickoff money. And we had to invest around 10 million euros, so $12 million, to get the project to a certain level of maturity. But then the industry kicked in and it became almost a self-sustainable project. And I hope that ultimately this could become a success story close to MP3, which is the biggest invention and this contribution in Fraunhofer, now from the life science angle within Fraunhofer in the next few years.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So dandelions, which we hate as homeowners, could be one of the biggest inventions we've seen.
This is exactly the point. And I have the second story, if I can briefly tell you, that
absolutely.
was I bumped into a gentleman, Professor Wilczynskas, around 7-8 years ago, again by accident, and he's an entomologist, so working with insects. And before I got to know him, I did not even really, except maybe looking at some butterflies, paid attention to insects. But he clearly convinced me that in terms of biological diversity, there is no organism group in the world that is bigger and outnumbers any other group than insects. So there's 1.2 million species. And he could convince me if you take some of these, and some of them are pests, literally, by transmitting diseases, but looking into how they adopted through evolution to these different scenarios and different ecological systems. So they really learn how to survive. And he could convince me how you can learn from nature, and if you do the right digging for the valuable compounds, whether this is now a polymer, a small molecule, or even a biological like an antimicrobial, then you have a total new start, and literally you're learning from nature and can adopt that. And jointly, we raised over 100 million euro. We set up the first institute for insect biotechnology, and it's going now in multiple directions, including a big collaboration here with former Dow Agro, where we're looking in insects for natural molecules that can prevent modern crops to be infected by insects, literally defeating against any kind of pest like the corn borer, for example, which is also called the $1 billion bug because it has such an impact in terms of losses in agriculture.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what do you see, just changing gears slightly, what are the biggest obstacles that you see with IBRI having the success you want to have, and what are you doing to overcome them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think I would not necessarily say an obstacle. We are a very, very young organization, even though we are now in the 5th year, I think, after the incorporation. But we are a very small group, and we have to build the content. That means the success stories that we can sell either to industrial partners, but also to get academia interested and ultimately to generate revenue, or to get donors and people that are interested in endowments interested to invest in us to make the big stories happening. Other things, if we really go down the road, and that's one of our plans towards therapeutic development, whether this is now a molecule, a DNA, or a cell-based therapy, definitely it's the regulatory path, which is very, very lengthy, and this is one of the downsides in life sciences. It takes from the idea to have the product in the market at least 15 years or up to 15 years, and the costs are tremendous. And that's why I'm building extremely strong on networking, not only with academia, but also with industry and regulatory on top, to do this as early as possible so that you don't make the wrong investment and you know early on when to basically pull out or when to continue investing and pushing things forward. Mm-hmm. Then there might be some local issues, but in the end, each organization, each operation has certain challenges. Many of them we cannot predict. Like when I started in 2000 with Fraunhofer, I hired almost 20 people in plant biotechnology, and 3 months later, there was a big issue regarding a moratorium for genetic engineering in plants in Europe. So, and as I had hired people, at least in the German system, you cannot just lay them off. So you had like a 3 or 5 year contract and you need to comply. And so the question was, what do we do? So we literally looked into alternative markets. And the result of that was setting up the operation in Delaware, which I did, by the way, with Senator Biden back then. Okay. Who became then the former vice president. And he helped me tremendously in setting up this operation. So we took a failure or a challenge into something positive. But also we did this with the technology. We moved from genetic engineering to like high throughput mutagenesis. It's a term called tilling. Targeted induced local lesions. So that's literally the mutation frequency is increased to have a new breed or breeding line that has a better feature. And we developed some success stories out of that, learning from this failure. And this will happen here also in one way or the other. But as long as you're open-minded and you're prepared for that, to tackle the challenge, in particular, if you have the right mentors and supporters in the back, I think this is doable.
Great. Is there anything that you wanted to tell me about that I didn't ask the right question for you to get a chance to tell me?
Well, I think in the end, maybe a little bit about the IBRI, where we want to move this institute. So maybe I forgot to say this in the beginning. We are an independent and a 501c3, so a non-for-profit research organization that tries to mediate between academia and industry. We have currently 3 major activities or core competencies. So this is in particular in the space of regenerative medicine linked to diabetes, particular type 1 diabetes and metabolic biology. Then we have the diagnostics, the single cell analytics. So there we want to drive away from, let's say, large scale analysis to single cell analysis to understand better diseases and going maybe in a systems approach, and the big data analytics, diving and digging into the available Indiana-based electronic medical records. And again, there we have some very interesting success stories. We're going to build 4 additional core competencies in the space of antibodies and vaccines. And antibodies are the key revenue generator. And that is my prime expertise and background. And that's what we're going to build. But also in the space of protein engineering, protein manufacturing, genome editing. So the gene scissors that you might have heard about in genome editing, and also the human microbiome. And this is all technology driven, and we will also focus to adopt that not only to our stakeholders, but also to different market or business fields. And this is in the cardiometabolic or disease space. It will be in the space of digital health, and the ultimate one will be also nutrition. And we want to bring these all together. And the ultimate scenario we can think about is maybe having solutions with healthier nutrition, maybe supported with apps, going to early stage improved diagnostics, and ultimately then supplementing that with improved therapeutic compounds.
Great. That's very ambitious, and I have every confidence you're going to get there. How can people follow your progress, follow the progress of the Institute? What's the best place to go to?
Well, definitely on our homepage, and with Mark Kraft now on board, we want to become better on that and more proficient. We might also think about developing a newsletter that we're going to circulate. And then other than that, we try to attend all the local activities and events, try either to get a speaking slot, but also reaching out. And of course, people can always reach out to me or anybody at the IBRI.
I can vouch for that. You're very approachable and very responsive. And interestingly, if you search Indiana Biosciences on Google, before you can even finish typing Biosciences, the first thing Google suggests is the IBRI. So people, if they're looking for the website, just start typing Indiana Biosciences, and it'll come right up. So, well, thank you so much so far. This has been great. Let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and have a little fun with the rapid fire round.
Oh yeah, thank you.
We'll be right back.
We are very proud to have the support of the Indiana Health Industry Forum here at the Life Science Effect. They have been with us since day one. IHIF provides guidance and leadership on public policy issues that contribute to innovation in the health science sector, deliver therapies to patients in need, and further the development and growth of their member companies. IHIF also works with the government and other groups to support specific initiatives and legislation. Also, if you need a connection in the health industry, give them a call. Go to ihif.org and they will hook you up. They have been a tremendous supporter of ours, so thanks again to the Indiana Health Industry Forum. Go check out ihif.org and support them like they support our life science community. Now, back to the show.
We're back with Rainer Fischer, and it's time for the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, good. Finish the following sentence. The one principle I will never compromise is...
Dishonesty.
Honesty.
Dishonesty.
Oh, you will never compromise dishonesty. Got it. So always be honest.
Exactly.
Perfect. That would be unusual if you meant it the other way. What's one thing every aspiring leader should stop doing today?
Micromanaging.
And what's one thing every aspiring leader should start doing today?
Working together with other leaders, not only internally, also on the outside.
Great. And on a personal note, what are you listening to these days?
I love music. Many people know that I have this special link to the Scorpions, but they are not my favorite group. I only bumped into them one day. I'm a big fan of literally the classic rock music, but also jazz music. I love Coldplay. I love Pink Floyd, and I can only recommend everybody to listen to music, to go to concerts. In the 70s and 80s, I literally went to every concert that was out there in Europe. The only thing I missed was the Beatles, so I was too young to listen to them. But everybody else, including the Stones and the Scorpions, and by the way, the Scorpions were founded 3 months before the Rolling Stones were founded, so I've listened to all of them live.
You have a story about the Scorpions, don't you?
Yes.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So I was actually on the 31st of August, I remember that very well, 2 years ago. I was on a flight from Munich to Sao Paulo, continuing to Chile. And I was in the same cabin with the lead guitar player of the Scorpions, Rudolf Schenker. And so we started talking. We talked for over 10 hours. It's a 12-hour flight. We shared some nice wine. And at the end, he invited me to the concert. And I couldn't make it to the concert in Sao Paulo, which was the opening of their 50-year anniversary tour. And he celebrated that evening his 69th birthday. Oh, wow. And he's the youngest guy of the group. And anyway, but then I made it 10 days later to the concert in Santiago de Chile, where he then again invited me. And I first thought, it's just a fun story and it's never going to happen, but it happened. And he invited me plus 3 friends to come to the concert and to meet with him backstage. And it was one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen hundreds of concerts. And it was an amazing event. Almost 30,000 people in the arena. And it was really a lot of fun.
Great. That's a good story. I love that story.
Yeah. It's true.
And I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rainer, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Everybody go out and search Indiana Biosciences. Follow the progress. I'm looking forward to great things from IBRI as well as 16 Tech and this whole life science community. Check out thelifescienceeffect.com to find different ways to subscribe to the show. And thank you for being with us, and thank you for listening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Many thanks to Rainer Fischer of IBRI, and also thanks to IBRI in general for all the good work they're doing in Indiana and across the world, really. Their mission is to become the leading industry-inspired applied research institute in the discovery and development of innovative solutions to improve health, initially targeting diabetes, metabolic disease, and poor nutrition. And even that read of their mission doesn't tell the whole story. They're out there really trying to help get discoveries to commercial viability in reality so that we can help patients. So thank you to the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, IBRI, Rainer Fischer, and the entire team, the just excellent team that he's building over there. You have just experienced the Life Science Effect. If you liked it, be sure and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And more importantly, tell your colleagues, your boss, your friends. It'll make you look smart. Maybe it'll even get you a raise. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, BPM Associates. Set your medical innovations in motion. BPM helps life sciences companies design, manage, and execute their most complex projects. What effect will you cause? And thanks to today's guest. Let us know who else I should be talking to. Send me an email at steven.vinson@bpm-associates.com. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Now go make something wonderful happen.